Okay, we went off the rails. We're trying to stay back on the rails here after a 27-minute video where I got pretty deep into something that I haven't talked about in my new opening of New Day to Start. I my entire operation got shut down. For some reason, my iPhone's storage got to a high enough capacity that it shut my video off, which I thought was ironic. And then also I needed a storage update, and I needed to do a couple things with my storage just to get the video to work. But then also my phone was dying, and I had another phone. The whole thing was kind of funny because I was starting to hammer home on the point that I was trying to make, which took me 27 minutes to get to. We're going to go back to optics. Our observations, this is part 2 of a 2-part series, so if you want to see the first part, I don't even know what the name of it is yet, but go see the first part. You'll be able to figure it out. Our observations of the sun. So I want to get into what we were talking about. We're into optics versus physicality. And I don't want to have to reiterate everything I already said, so I'm trying to draw this together without much preparation. But I want to keep going with flow because I only have so much time before I have to go back to work, and it's already become a 27-minute video, which is going to take forever to upload. So this might even be a 3-part series because I totally want to get this out now that I've come this far. I don't want to do any more videos about this after this. So I want to just get this out of the way because I think the whole flat earth thing is stupid. All right, so back to optics though. Our observations of the sun on our ecliptic, that thing that we have where we see the figure 8, it's optical. We can observe and collaborate with physical observations on our terrestrial, wherever we're at. And then we can use, while we're on our terrestrial, laser, which is light, I think, color, infrared, ultraviolet. We can see the colors of that in the spectrum when we lens it. We can test these lights versus measurements of time. But time isn't physical. But we have no real verification outside of that. So there is no physical verification. It's important to realize that when you start your optics. It's the lens. For example, you have an eyeball with a lens. We have a lens effect. For example, Katy Perry and Captain Kirk. All this Blue Origin stuff is still within the lens of what is outside. All the satellites and the space station is still inside the lens. It is actually possible that the moon is inside the lens. The sun is not. Logically, it is not. It is the source of our light. And the moon's also. Pretty certain of that. We have no physical verification of the sun. All of these fireball nuclear stuff, what we see are spots, and we see discoloration and differences of optical observations of lengths of light and color. It's not the same. So we have no physical verification of the sun without the moon landing. Even with the moon landing in 1972 was the last one with our buggies and golf. It would be a separate reference from Earth, but even according to known science now, may still be, there's an atmosphere that they call the atmosphere, and they say that that may extend outside of the moon, some say. Okay, I doubt anyone is still with me. So what is ironic is, so going back into the previous video and what we were talking about with this flat earth debate is what we had yesterday. And one of the first things that was brought up by, to give some reference back into the names, McToon, was that he had went on this Antarctica thing. It was really just to collaborate the dismantling of Jeranism, which was a big player in, he actually, after going on this trip, he was a flat earther. He went down wanting to observe the sun. He didn't think there would be a 24-hour sun that would be observed where they were going in Antarctica. And so he made his flag plant that we are, if we do see the 24-hour sun, then everything else, it's really strange, honestly. I've watched a little bit of it, but my big question before they even went is, what about the moon landing? Does this make the moon landing real? But it's two different topics, I get it, but it's really not in one way or another. What I said before, the moon landing is what proves the physicality. It is what proves the physicality in our collective mindset. But if it didn't happen, and if they faked it. So anyways, Whitsitt was the other big player of it. Whitsitt was probably the most articulate, best debater. So the reason why it's so prominent right now is because Whitsitt wasn't there. He hasn't been on there since. And so there's two other people that are basically talking and can't actually go against. So it's not their fight, the two gentlemen that were on the debate. So Jaron basically, after going down on this trip, there's some drama to it. He turned into a glober, if you want to call it that, whatever label you want to give it. And then Whitsitt has he's went off topic, which probably is that's probably what he's being called to do. He seems pretty genuine to me. He's got some ego, but I mean, it's hard not to have ego, especially when you have a lot of talent. So you go down to Antarctica, and even if you have ego and you're talented, and you try to not have the ego, people are going to still say you have ego because you look good and you're taking care of yourself and you're doing good things. There's something about the unbuttoned shirt, though. He had his last thing, he came in with an unbuttoned shirt, and he had his chest out there, and he had to fix it. And I was like, dude, do that stuff before you get on camera. Hey, what's it? If you watch these. All right, so anyways, I go down to Antarctica. I didn't go down. I wouldn't have went. Why? Because it's a false dichotomy. I'm not going to put myself in that position. And that's the way it is. Even if they would have paid for it, there's nothing that could have been gained from it. So that was my biggest problem with the whole thing. But I'm sure he's going to make his fair share of comebacks, and this isn't against him. I'm just saying, now these two guys that have been doing all this work, or they put themselves in that arena, they probably shouldn't have. And so they just got into this label. It's the same thing as the flat earth as a label. It's illogical. The final experiment was illogical. The crime was we lost Whitsitt. He's really been the biggest spark for flat earth, if you want to call it. Maybe that's good, though. We don't need flat earth. It's not what we should be calling it. It ain't flat. He was optically the star, though. The lads from Ether Cosmology are brilliant. So is Whitsitt, actually. I think it's pretty hard to argue against that. But optically, let's just say Whitsitt versus these, they're their own thing. What I would say is I give commendment to the bravery of it, of going into that arena and trying to, and it is compelling now that I think about it. If you really watch that and watch those two clowns, you can kind of see what I'm saying by the clown thing. And it really does fit into the Tao Te Ching, because you got these two unshoveled guys that are actually just sitting there taking it very in a commendable way. But then you have these two other guys that are being propped up by ego and are very successful, that people will talk to and be like, whoa, look at those people. And these two guys are shunned by society. But if you really watch that, and if you're able to listen to it outside of the tomfoolery, I mean, it's obvious to me. It's something that everybody should watch and just say, well, maybe there's something here, because what is that? That's awful. It is what it is, but you have to be able to see it. The emperor has no clothes kind of thing. And you have to be able to stand next to those two guys and say, I'm with them. I'm with them. I don't care. I'm with them. They're doing their best out there. They're trying. How dare you talk to them about what effort they're putting forth? What I witnessed yesterday was tragic and beautiful. Anyone can give these lads an hour or so. If you went to Ether Cosmology and you watched either of them, it's Space Audits or St. Pierre Paul. I think that's how you say his name. I should have verified that before I kept going forth. I got a phone here. We're going to make sure I'm saying this right, so I give him credit. I think it's because he puts it as ST. Or does he not? Let's see. I'm going to Google him. That's definitely not him. I have him as a subscription. This is compelling, isn't it? This is how hard it is to find people. Did this work? That's totally not him either. All right, so let's go find. This is part of your problem, bro. Subscriptions. Should I do this? I'm committed now. It'd be a bummer if I wasn't actually subscribed to him. I'm pretty sure I am. How come I can't see subscriptions from here? That's what I don't understand. I've blown this whole video. I give up. I'm not going to try to find it. It's St. Pierre Paul. But I don't know how to find him on YouTube. I'm bad too. I got New Day to Start, and you got to put a 2 in there. I think the hashtag thing's cool, though. You can always find me. All you got to do is hashtag New Day to Start, and you'll find one of my billion videos. If you find this one, St. Pierre Paul. So anyways, so these guys were trying to fight the good fight. It was a bad arena. I give it to them. I mean, it's very Christ-like, honestly. But the truth shields you. That's why they weren't. One of the things they kept saying, they were just trolls, honestly. The moderator was a troll, too. But, so they didn't really care. They were talking about, but it was so bad. I hope they learned their lesson. I mean, martyrism is a thing. But the conversation they're attempting to have is just not translatable in an optical debate format. I mean, it's optical, too, because it's just like the Kennedy thing with Kennedy and Nixon. Back to Socrates, he wouldn't bathe with the swine. He wouldn't even be in that arena unless he was forced into it. So Witsit Gets It is the other one. So we got 3 guys that I'm trying to basically talk about that are main figures in this whole situation. Even though Witsit wasn't there, he was in the shadow of who those 2 guys are. I think they collaborated a lot. Not that they're together, but Ether Cosmology was at the same kind of time as Witsit, and I think there was a lot of collaboration together with all of them. And anyways, he was the best debater I've ever seen, and he struggled in the arenas. He probably shouldn't have been putting himself in those places. But because he was pretty good at it, he did handle himself well in it. There's not very many others that have been able to do it, because you get trapped into these stupid, emotional things, and it's just all dumb. But because the earth isn't flat, it's not flat, you can't debate that it is, because it's not. It's just a premise. And then, because optical observation does not confirm physics, because physics is physical, not optical. Experiments must have an independent variable. All measurements are triangular. If one tangent is always and only observable and testable as optical, if your tangent point is always going to be optical, then it's not a physical observation. You can bounce a signal you can bounce a signal, but there's only so many things we can bounce signals from so far that we can bounce signals from, which is essentially where we can give any distance to, because it's kind of the same thing. You're talking about how long it takes. So it's not a physical observation, which is essentially the whole debate. It's the conflation of physical phenomenon, which happens here on our realm. I'm giving an example of like the Coriolis effect. It's an observable effect of motion on this plane. But then we conflate it to optical observation, which actually is not experimental. You can't even experiment to it. So it becomes theology. Unless you can land on the moon, which happened in 1972. I think my point is, don't debate the earth is not flat and work on your ego. What I think it was the two ether cosmology gentlemen had stumbled upon, I don't even know if they did the experiment, and I'm not even sure what the terminology is for the devices. I can't even say it. It's a thermolodite. I'm going to botch it. They had a device that they're using to make an optical observation, and exactly what I'm talking about versus the optical versus physical. They're trying to use physical to bring into play, because when you have optical observations, you have refraction because of lensing effects. So they're trying to make a optical observation to be able to show distance. And what they're saying is, if you use a physical mountain as an obstruction between your optical observation from the triangulation point between you and the optical point that you can no longer have, you have no physicality to. You can no longer have physicality in the triangle. So there's a triangle. Here's your optic, your moon, and here's the ground. What they're trying to do is put this wolf in the middle. And as this goes this way, if you can still see the star, you should be doing that. Here, you should be doing that. But if this goes this way and you don't see it anymore, then it's doing something different, is basically what they're saying. Not necessarily flat, but it's doing something different than what the heliocentric model says. And that's pretty much what they're trying to say. It's impossible. That's what Antarctica, what they're saying down there with that optical observation doesn't prove anything, because it's still an optical observation. By using the mountain in their idea of how to prove this, they're using some physicality. It's still a little botchy, I guess, but I understand the point of it. And that, like, it got lost in the entire conversation. But I think that they found something that they think is so concrete that they're just like, I don't care, I'm presenting it. And then they kind of maybe should have been more prepared in how they came in. But that's just kind of how I read the whole situation, because I'd never heard of this mountain observation idea before. Anyways, where did I go to? We can bounce signals off the moon. Yes, I mean, I think they can. It seems to be that they can point something up there, and supposedly they put mirrors up there, but they're bouncing something off the moon. It may actually have some physicality. I don't know. I think it's different, definitely different than the sun, and it's probably maybe in a different, like, 93 billion trillion quadrillion light years away. I don't know, and I don't know the sizing, but I do know that it doesn't seem to be in the same lens, and it does seem to be the source of the moon's light, at least in some respect. Whether they have some kind of, I don't want to get into whether it's a reflection, or some people say that the moon actually emits its own light. There is the greater and lesser light, so I don't know. I don't want to get into it. It could be battery. I don't freaking know, dude. Anyways, you can bounce signals off the moon. You can't off the sun, from what I can tell. It's really far away, according to them. I think my point is, don't debate the earth is not flat and work on your ego. That's where I came to with that. I stopped debating cosmology a while ago. So what I got into was following the way. That's how I got into the debate in the first place. And then that's how I got out of it, was I believe that we're not convincing anyone of anything. The boys are, the lads is what they like to be called, I think. they are, they don't and shouldn't even talk with with guys named McToon or Glabby McGlobeface. I mean, the whole thing was ugly, but I wish I could have helped. I wish we could find a way to help articulate what they want to articulate in a better way or in a better setting. But they're doing a really good job on their own. They just put their name out there. More people are going to go to that site now than ever. They got a big hit on that, and they just basically sacrifice their ego, which they apparently don't care too much about, and I don't care too much about mine. So they are standing on truth. They feel truth about it. So whatever. At least they got what they wanted done. And people are going to look at what they looked at. Some people will. There's people out there that are looking at this kind of stuff, I promise you. It is very taboo, though. But that's not my calling to get into that at all. So go where you are celebrated, not tolerated. I'm just trying to do my best. They were tolerating. It was just disgusting having to deal with those clowns. But I give it to the lads. I really do like their vibe. I would encourage you to go check out Ether Cosmology and pick any of them. And they have all kinds of stuff out there. They've done so much research. I think I talked about it in the previous part 1 of this. So this is going to be like about an hour of flat earth shit. I've wrecked my career. For the record, I'm not a flat earther, yo. The earth ain't flat. I don't actually think they like me at Ether Cosmology. I don't think the two guys, I don't know. I think St. Pierre, I've interacted with him more than I have with Space Audits. I don't even know if they're even aware of me, actually. But I've been in conversations with them a few times on Discord servers and things like that. And I am very intrigued by them. But I think I'm a little too woo-wee. I may even have too much Christianity to me, which I'm not even a Christian. But I don't really know. I'm too mystical, maybe. I think that St. Pierre is really into astrology, though. And I was intrigued by hearing Space Audits because he was very intrigued by the 1312 thing, which was like a dumb question for McToon. That was a good place to see the clownism. Anyways, I don't think they agree with me on the light is not physical either. I think that light is not physical. I think whatever's coming from the sun is a lens, and what's above it may or may not be physical. But what I'm saying is we have no verification of it, and for me, I don't think light is physical. I think when light interacts, if whatever light is, when it interacts with matter and air, that's when it becomes what we observe. Everything outside of that is just something that we can only see like a star. We only see like what we see of it. And the wandering planets, I don't even know what they are. I just think, but we have this physicality thing. I mean, we literally have had a helicopter on Mars. But whatevs. So what I want to do is finish this out, because I did think it was commendable. I thought it was very ugly to watch, but it was kind of like a rose in the middle of an awful ugliness, because I actually thought they handled themselves very well, in my opinion. So I give them 48 minutes of video of me talking about it, and nobody ever watches this, so whatever. So I'm going to sing my song for them. I hope they hear it, because they did make a big impact yesterday, even though it was ugly, and I appreciate them taking one for the team. Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Yesterday doesn't matter, it only serves as a ladder. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so make your plans accordingly. Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Go get it, guys, lads, whatever you want to call it, gals. We need like a hot woman. Well, there are a few of them, actually. I don't want to start talking about who they are. I'm not here to promote a bunch of flat earth people, because like I said, the earth ain't flat. Everybody have a great day. I hope you all do great and be great. And then be grateful, regardless if it's flat or like a spinning water ball that tilts and wobbles and all that jazz. Have a great day.